What kind of trouble would we like to get into today? Anything on anyone's mind in particular? You really should come with something, yeah? It's good for you. It's good for you to project into something. Maybe you have. Maybe you did project into something. Maybe you projected into um and I don't actually mean this offensively at all, but Pierce is going to feed us. Is that possibly the way you projected into this today? As opposed to going with a specific intention of what you wish to extract. There's a big difference, isn't there? It's okay. Nonetheless, there are some things that I want to impart anyway. So we will begin there unless there's something very pressing for somebody. Yeah, so, I've just been contemplating a bit about how this work is different than other types of work, right? I've never been one to say that this is the only way, yeah, into something. How this work is different than other types of work. And that was my morning process a bit. And what occurs to me is that instead of taking the tact of trying to elevate our consciousness, right, to various levels in the universe, we instead bring it to us. We create an opportunity within ourselves to be able to bring those types of forces down into us. Yeah. And this is, I think this is very important. I harp, harp and harp and harp, don't I, on the ray of creation. And the reason why is because it's incredibly important. Your entire development journey is included in the ray of creation. You start at do, you get to re, you get to mi, you encounter a difficulty, fa, sol, la, si, another difficulty, and then do. Now that might be the method of doing it, or that might be maybe a good symbol as far as how it all happens and how it all occurs. But in reality, you really stay at do the entire time, and you bring re to you, you bring mi to you, and fa, and so on. Do you understand the difference? You're not doing this, because otherwise, here's what would happen. I would get to a certain level of development, and I would disappear. Once you get past me, for example, you would not be able to maintain a planetary body if you were actually ascending like that. You understand? If an angel wants to talk to you, it has to wear a cloak. It has to come down to your level. Yeah, it has to take on some bit of physicality. No matter how rarefied, it has to have some physicality in order to be able to deal with you. And you can't get to it. It has to come to you. So what I'm saying is this is one of the differences between this system and, say, like an Eastern system of meditation. Who here has done meditation on a regularly, right? Difficult, isn't it? Meditation is very abstract. Meditation requires something that most Western minds don't have. And these days, most Eastern minds don't have. And that is the ability to not have a life. It's true, right? Because when meditation was a way, and it very much was a way, what was required was the ability to seal oneself off and block everything out until you ascended, until it happened to you. You see, but we don't have that situation, do we? We have, our jobs, our families, I don't have that luxury, right? I can't say to players, sorry, I'll be back in 3 weeks. I have to go on a meditation. Yeah, hold on. So you can see she's smiling, yeah, right? I can't say that. And so have you ever considered The very fact that you were born into this century with all of its kind of obligations and requirements and all of the things that are pulling you in various directions. Have you ever considered that you must have done that because that's what was needed for your development at this point in time? You have a very different view of reincarnation. It is possible to incarnate back into the 1400s, for example. It's possible to incarnate to 2000 BC, if that's where your spiritual journey needs to be. If that is the ecology that's required for your next step in development, then that's where you would have been. By the way, it's not linear, right? You could get whatever you need here in this life for this step that you're on. And then in the next life, you could choose to incarnate into 2000 BC, right? If that's where your next step is required. It's not like, past lives don't work quite the way people think. Generally speaking, when someone has a strong sense of their past life, what they're really doing is connecting to something very similar, a similar print in the astral light. Yeah, it's not necessarily you, but you share a certain frequency, a certain symbiosis with a particular set of events. Yeah, that's generally how it works. But all of that aside, the fact of the matter remains that you did incarnate into this life with all of its tugs and pulls and pushes in various different directions. And in some respects, let's take the note me, okay, on a personal development journey as an example. Now, you start off at Do, right? And you kind of, you understand the physicality of life. You get to Re, you become the queen of heaven, the moon. Start off on the dark side of the moon, you get to the light side of the moon, okay? That's the Do Re sort of thing. You start facing a different direction in the ray of creation, as opposed to that way, you're now facing that way, all right? But then you get to me, the note me. And one of the features in the note me has to do with life itself, with the ecology in which all things can spring forth. And I'm talking about daffodils and giraffes and you and I and microbes, all of it. All of that is in the sphere of me from a developmental point of view, along with many other things like healing arts and anything that would go with that sort of thing. But now imagine if you're a biologist in this century, how much more insight you could gain out of the sphere of me, right? Out of that level of intelligence, of bringing that intelligence into you, than someone could have 2,000 years ago when they didn't realize that there were things like amoebas, right? Where they didn't realize what photosynthesis is, what the carbon cycle is, and so on and so forth. You understand?
Yeah.
So this is a growing work. And the fact that you're here now means that all of the information that's available to you in the world now can be used to support your endeavor. Yeah. And so this is why I hesitate to run down the path of this being some sort of traditional type of work, because truth be told, it has to be current because it's happening now. It is not an ancient work. It has ancient roots, as most of you know, right? Most of you have read and appreciate it. It has ancient roots because it's called a way, yeah? But it's so very current. When you get to the sphere of intelligence that is incorporated in the note me, right? Microcosm, the planet herself, then by all means, benefit from everything that this culture has to offer in that regard. Benefit yourself. Do you all understand the difference that I'm making between a system, a spiritual system wherein you try to ascend, right, your levels of consciousness and so on and so forth? Like Taoism, for example, is a very good example of that type of work, yeah, where you meditate and you transcend, and various types of yoga. In fact, most of the Eastern traditions are really based in ascension rather than into drawing something into you. Do you understand the difference? Do you understand how big and significant of a difference that is? No? What do you think, Kimberly? I see you shaking your head no. Or maybe you weren't shaking your head no. Maybe it was just hitting you.
No, I guess I just need to think through the significance of that. I'm not sure I'm gathering what the significance of that would be.
Okay.
Or why that differentiation is important. Or so.
Well, one of the things that it has to do with is mixing and matching. I'm all for people understanding various different things. I do. I mean, I research everything. I research various religions. I have all my life, all kinds of different belief systems and those sorts of things. But there is something to be said for finding your way and sticking to it until you actually achieve a result. Right? This is one thing that, especially in the Western mind, has become a bit of a toxin to people on their personal development journey. And that is, I'm going to dabble in this and get a little bit from it, and I'm going to dabble in that and get a little bit from it, and I'm going to dabble in this. And we are a society of dabblers instead of a society. It's okay, right? Let's say that you decide I'm going to get to XYZ, right? Certain point in a particular discipline, and you engage in that discipline. You get to that point at that time because you fulfilled your aim of doing so. Then by all means, find a different path if you wish, and follow it. But the mixing and matching of things becomes very difficult, and it is not an ancient way. It is a very new way, and it's based on the idea that, again, like I said, we have all this access to information. But the problem is that let me put it this way. Let's say that you wish to learn calculus. Okay. And you make a start of that by learning basic mathematics. You make a start of it by learning a little bit of algebra. In other words, all of the little things, right, that lead up to calculus, which is a different field of study altogether. But then you decide, in order to learn calculus, you're going to now study biology for a little while, right? And then you're going to study literature for a little while, and then history, and then poetry, and then you see all of these things, while they have their benefit, while they can add to your existence, are not going to teach you calculus. Does that make sense? Is that a terrible analogy, or is it making sense? Yeah. This is not to say that there's one right way and one wrong way. But you should be observant of the ecology you were born into and the ecology that you currently live in, and make sure that the way that you choose is actually compatible with that. Yeah. If the way that you choose requires 16 hours of meditation per day, and you have a 9-to-5 job, then that's going to be a bit difficult, isn't it? It'll be difficult. But guess what? You can get there if you just accept your life. I've told this to you all before, that wherever you found yourself when you met this work is exactly where you need to be to do this work. Trust me when I say you would never have encountered this work if you weren't fit for it. If your life wasn't fit for it, if the ecology in which you find yourself was unfit for it, you never would have found it. It would have been invisible to you. You can't prove it because that would require things that I, can't do. But I do know it. I do know that it's true. You can do this work in the life that you find yourself in, and that's one of the beauties of it. You don't have to go to a monastery. So let's talk a bit more about this idea of instead of rising through the array of creation, which, by the way, is just a convenient tool. Do you understand that? I mean, the Kabbalists have the exact same thing. They call it the tree of life. It's got 10 sephiroth, right? And it's do, re, mi, shak, fa, sol, la, si, shak, do. That's 10, right? They do the same thing. So in a sense, it's Kabbalah is a different way of putting this type of work in some respects. Yeah. And if you have some familiarity with Gemrod, you'll know that that's very much along the same line, along the same tact of things. If you haven't had that, that's okay too. Well, I suppose to get into this a little bit, we need to talk a bit about your own cosmic biology. You know you have a body, yeah, because it's here, it's tangible, you can feel it. Okay, so let's start down here and say physical. The physical reality is where you start this type of engagement. And what I mean by that is that if you want to sound the note do, we'll put the scale over here on this side of the board, okay? If you want to understand or start the note of do on your way of return up the way of creation rather than the way of biological evolution, then you have to start with the physical. What I mean by that is that you need to begin to look at the world around you, at everything that you can touch, feel, taste, smell, hear, see, and begin to understand it. Not necessarily from a scientific standpoint, although that doesn't hurt. We'll get into a different method of doing so in a minute. But not only that, but you as well. Taking yourself into context with the physical surroundings in which you live. And, you know, one of the most profound sayings of all time is know thyself. Yeah. Have you taken the time to make a detailed inventory of what you are? Not who you are per se, but what you are. What do you like? What do you dislike? What are you like? What postures do you tend to hold? What tones of voice do you tend to use? Some of this might be familiar, right? What facial expressions are kind of in your repertoire? What things do you avoid? Do you have an aversion to certain things? Have you taken the time to actually look at yourself as though you were in a science experiment and begin to understand what you are in a very physical way? I'm not talking about metaphysics at this point. I'm talking what you are, okay? Because once you understand that, and here's why this becomes important. Because there's this barrier right here, okay? So physical. Above that, you have the lower astral. And above that, the higher astral. Okay? Now, these are parts of you that you may or may not be aware of. Where you do have some awareness in this is that this barrier between the physical and the lower astral really ties into the nervous system, okay, to the sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous systems. And so this is where you kind of get this distinguishment of you are not just a machine, but an entity with a machine. You see, that's where this kind of combination takes place in here. Now, under normal circumstances, for a person who is not on a personal development journey of any kind, then it's the physical that controls the lower astral, and there's very little left of the higher astral. It's there, right? But if you want to think of this in terms of the aura, the lower astral would be the etheric layer, okay, of the aura. That is your astral content. I mean, you, at this very moment, could stand here, right? Plant your feet on the ground like I'm doing and project your astral content, this lower astral content, into a form right out in front of you. Yeah? And if you're seeing electrically, then you'll see what I'm doing right now. I'm casting this form out in front of me. This is part of the lower astral aspect of a person. I'm going to bring it back in now. This is what has kind of prophetic dreams. This is what people are usually talking about when they astral travel, if it is involuntarily or even semi-voluntarily. You see, they're putting their etheric outside of their body and it's capturing information. Where it ties into the sympathetic and parasympathetic systems really has to do with emotion. This is why it's called the emotional body in some schools of thought. Okay, the astral body is referred to as the emotional body with both a high and low end. Sensations of pleasure, for example, right? There's a part of me that enjoys, right, being around this lady. Yeah, that part is the emotional aspect of the astral form, of the astral body. You see, now when I touch her shoulder, I get a certain physical sensation, which then equates into, various things that go on biologically. Yeah, inside me, right? Feelings of joy and chemicals that are released and all this type of stuff. It's that borderline world between the lower part of the astral and the physical. But I'll tell you what, we'll talk about the higher astral in a moment, but I'll tell you what, unless you know thyself, you won't be in a position to allow this to control the physical. Okay? Usually the situation is reversed for people. The physical controls the lower astral. And like I said, the higher astral has some content, but is basically non-existent in most people. Okay, so if we get into this idea of knowing thyself, not just what you're like, but what you like. You understand? What you dislike, because this is where you begin to have the more of a connection, more of an association with the lower astral part of you and the physical part of you. How you actually showed up here, how you manifested here. Yeah. Making some sense so far. It'll become more clear as we press on. But this is where Do begins. This is where you begin. Know your world and know yourself. I'll add to that, okay? All right? Know thy world and know thyself, I think would be a much more apt way to put that. And really, they kind of go hand in hand, right? Because I'll tell you, just like you wouldn't have discovered this way unless the ecology of your life was open to it, you really don't see things in the physical world unless you have some sort of resonance with them anyway, inside yourself. You can go for a walk right next to somebody and both set out with the intention of being very observant of the walk, right? Being very observant of the journey. What things do you notice? What things do you hear? What do you smell? And so on and so forth. And then when you get back home at the end of that walk, you compare notes, you'll find that you have very little in common, even though you both took the same journey. And that's because you have certain aspects in you that are akin to those things that you see. And if you don't have the tuning fork for it, you're just not going to see it. You're not going to notice it or pay attention to it. Now, we can hone that. One thing to keep in mind, and this is just, again, sounding the note Do, is to intentionally put yourself in a position of trying to learn about things that you really have no natural interest in. Yeah. If you are just like, for example, if you are completely unattracted to music, try learning music just to understand that aspect of yourself. Doesn't mean that you have to go off and become a world famous musician, you see, but you don't know it. All you know is the aversion. Do you see? You don't know what it feels like. You don't know how it impacts your life to try, for example, to learn music or mathematics. Yeah. A lot of people just hate math, don't they? Go learn math if you hate math. But not because you want to learn math, because you want to learn yourself. Understand what you like and what you are like. And this broadens, and eventually you will pull the note ray into yourself. Okay, the next level, this would really be here. Right? To become the Queen of Heaven. That's what Ray stands for. I'm not going to take you on the full journey. I do want to give you the sort of biology of things. Okay. Me would correspond to this level of development. So in each, how do I put this? In each level, whatever becomes developed has control over the lower orders. You see, so you kind of gather a lot of stock about who and what you are and who and what the world that you live in is here. Okay. Once you gather enough of that, this begins to get the message of it a bit. Yeah. And then has the opportunity then to control that aspect of you. In other words, the higher controlling the lower instead of the lower controlling the higher. Yes. Which really equates to the pursuit of pleasure for pleasure's sake. The lower controlling the higher. Now let me put a caution in there. There's nothing wrong with any of that. There's nothing wrong with the pursuit of pleasure. It depends on why you do it, right? If you want to have the fullest, richest experience of life, go experience everything. After all, you know, the entire persona of the Western mind is more life, more life, more life, more life, right? Get it all, embrace it all, gather it, collect it. That's okay. But there does come a point in time when the higher begins to rule the lower. Yeah. And you won't take yourself to certain places, right, anymore because it could damage you, could damage your electrics and so on and so forth, right? Then people get to this aspect. And like I said, I'm not going to take you on a full journey of this, but just to give you a sense of things. Okay. Above this level, well, first of all, there's the shock here, of course. But above this level, you have the mental body. So this would be the astral body, okay? Now, if you've been in and around certain esoteric groups, you may have kind of a vague view of what's meant by the term astral body. The fact is that everyone, just like everyone has this kind of content in themselves, everyone also has a mental body. I meant mental body earlier, not astral body, okay? It's the animation of your life. You understand that if you learn something, your brain is one thing. Your brain sits down here, and its job is to encode sequences of neurons in a certain way that the mental body can then go get it. The brain itself, the physical organ, is really an apparatus. It's a machine. Okay, it's just like a computer. It has to have an operator in front of it to do anything useful to it or with it. That's what the mental body is. Okay, the mental body is that aspect. If you the fact that I can stand here right now and pick through various things that I've thought about, various things that I've learned, various things that I've worked out, is an example of the mental body at work. It's going to access what's known as the white stock in myself, right? And it's piecing things together. So that's the biology of it. Do you understand? So you can say, like, this is almost cognizance and sentience, if you will. Cognizance more than sentience. But that's the mental body. Now, in its undeveloped state, that's all it ever does. It just goes and picks through the Rolodex of the brain, yeah, and pulls out different cards and says this is related to that, and so on and so forth. That's what what it functionally does, and that means that you kind of have a situation. So let's say that you've developed to the point of having an astral body in control of the physical. Then you've got another line here where the physical is still in control of the mental. In other words, this may be controlling the lower part, but this has not yet gotten there, you see. Okay. And so the next level of development, which of course would relate to Fa, and also because of the shock, the most difficult, pardon me, really gets rid of this line. Oops, gets rid of this line, yeah, and extends this one so that now the mental body is in control of the astral body and the astral body is in control of the physical body. Now, I will say this. This is very, very, very interesting because when this happens, when this kind of state develops in a person, the mental body still has no direct access to the physical. It has to rely on these kind of bands in here for interpretation. And so with someone with a highly developed astral content, astral body, right, in the higher areas of things, let's actually go beyond that. Let's say that someone has astral and mental bodies associated. Now, if you've ever gone astral traveling, right, or even accidentally, right, you're dreaming at night, yeah, and you have one of those very vivid, like it just has a different sense, different taste to it type of thing. You'll generally still come back with a bit of feeling like it made sense during the dream. It made sense at the time, but when you try to articulate it or try to give it some sort of form and content, it's very difficult to explain. It doesn't make as much sense as it did when you were experiencing it. The reason why is because this part didn't go with it. Okay, the mental body didn't go with it. It was just this, and generally you'll be left with a sense of emotion, of feelings about what happened during that experience. Now, a state does exist where you can then attach the mental body to the astral body, and then you come back. And this never happens accidentally. You do it, right? You actually intend it and you do it. But when you send your astral content out, higher and lower aspects, along with the mental body, it can then come get that info. It can think through the event. It can reason. It can contemplate through the event. Give you an example. Sometimes when people go to astral travel, right? Again, even if it's accidental, you'll find yourself in some sort of building, and instinctively you'll stop at a closed door. You'll stop at a closed door because your history tells you that you can't walk through a wall, walk through a closed door, or walk through something. And it takes a bit of kind of effort to will yourself on the other side of a door, on the other side of a wall, for example. The reason why that's the case is because this part isn't in attendance. If this part was in attendance, it would know that those are just thought forms, right? In that realm. And a thought is a thought. You can pass one thought right through the other. And so it would instantly be able to reason that out. I don't need to worry about crossing the street and getting hit by a car. I don't need to worry about doors. Yeah, it's able to think through these types of things. Whereas if it's not present, there's a bit more of that conditioned hesitation about certain things. Anyway, it's an example. And by the way, if you haven't experienced it, you're on the path. You will. Okay, you absolutely will. Just stick with this. You will. If you have experienced it, then now you're getting some content or some what's the right word? Not content, but some education that you should have gotten with these types of phenomena. Yeah, that happened before. Yeah. So there's one more above this. By the way, this extends quite a ways up, okay? But you start to get into the realms of divinity, and I can't really talk about it because I'm just not there yet, okay? I'm sorry, I'm just not there yet. I know of its existence. I've touched it, I've scratched the surface of it here and there, but I don't know. All right, so I don't know necessarily what's above all that, okay? Um, uh, I'll let you know when I do, I suppose. But in any event,
Here's, if I may
yeah.
interrupt, I wanted to talk a little bit about the, you know, uncontrolled, almost waking dreams. But I see Mazar has her hand up. She has had it
Hmm.
for a while, so maybe we should talk about what she wants to talk, and we'll come back to me.
Okay. Well, so thank you. Very gentlemanly. Yes, Mazad, please. And then Sachin, I'll come back to you. Okay.
Thank you, Sachin. Yes, I always thought that ascended masters, like prophets, they forget their physical body to go to astral life, um, and have something like astral projection. But you said the opposite of it. Um, Now I think I have to know my physical reality more, then I will be able to go to the higher level, like Ray or me.
Yeah. Yes, very true. There does exist a situation, right, where you can actually heavily develop this without developing this, and it causes a break. And it's a very unfortunate situation. It causes a break in people where they start living their life more here. It's not that this is in control of this, it's that this has no more connection to this, okay, other than to do the basic biological needs. And then a person just instantly wants to go back into this, astral realm, for example. Very dangerous situation. Yeah. And they need they need someone with a lot of wisdom to help them reconnect. The fact is that you absolutely do have a body and you live in a physical world. And that's the starting place. Yeah. This should be a smooth transition, a smooth connection from one to the other, not a cast this off. Trust me, there will be a time when you cast this off, and that's okay. Okay, but it's not now. This is a tool for discovery, not where the focus of life should be. So yeah, thanks for bringing that up. That is an important point in those realms, and it's a it's an area that a lot of people fall into, whether intentionally or accidentally, or maybe they're working with someone who didn't know any better. Yeah, you get these fakirs, right? That you have to carry them around from one place to another, and they've adopted a certain posture or whatever, and they only break posture to do the most mundane things, that sort of thing. That's not development. That's just a shift of focus, and quite likely they'll have to come back and have a very physical life if they want to continue on the path of return of the ray of creation.
Thank you.
Sachin.
Yeah, I am kind of the sort of the I have two aspects that follow on conversation from what Mazad said, but I have been noticing the parts about random dreams coming in. Usually, I sleep really well. Usually, I do pretty good. The last kind of month or so, that whole hey, I go in a dream and wait, this is not how it's supposed to be. I know this is not how it's supposed to be, but it happens anyway, and then I wake up. Like, oh wait,
Yeah.
in the dream I'm thinking through, but I don't know if there's a trick or if there's just you just have to do it long enough and then it happens. So that's one aspect that I'd like to kind of dive into a little bit more. And then also the worry when you said, "Hey, am I getting disconnected?" Like when that is happening, is that just the natural progression, or is this like am I not doing it right? Where the body is, as you were saying, like the body is getting out of control, or the higher aspects of the me and Ray, they are not quite developed enough. So I need to spend more time on the physical aspects. The physical aspects are have been going on, but they're kind of stalled a little bit. The last couple of months they were stalled. So anyway, those were the couple of things that I'd love to dive into a little bit more.
So one thing that I'm trying to emphasize, and I'm probably doing it a bit too abstractly, is that instead of it being an ascension where you're this and this and this and this and this, you want to bring those down into your physicality. Okay. And so, pardon me. The idea of having these lower and higher astral aspects to oneself needs to come back to the body. And you need to begin to experiment with what you can do with it when you're in a walking, waking state. What you can get from it. I'll give you guys an exercise if you want it. All right. This is a very, very powerful exercise to be able to develop in this way, as opposed to shifting center of gravity, from lower to higher. Is like I did before. Just, you don't have to do this now. In fact, I'd prefer you don't do this now. Okay. But stand with your feet on the ground and kind of in a straight up and down posture, and feel the soles of your feet connected with the earth. Okay. So like the bottom of the foot, feel a light, feel an energy through the bottoms of the feet. This will help to connect you to the planet herself. And then imagine something projecting from the solar plexus area, right? Kind of like a gas. Silvery gray, okay, gas that comes out from your solar plexus area and fills the space in front of you in a cloud, maybe 6 feet out. And using your imagination, continue this exercise, and then let it be in the shape of you. Okay, so it goes from like a jet of gas to forming a cloud of gas to taking on the like a mirror image of the shape that you're standing in. Your features, your face, your physique, okay, but this kind of shiny, silvery gray sort of gas, yeah? And send it somewhere. Don't go with it. Don't put your conscious awareness in it, but instruct it. Say, you can name it if you wish, but say whatever you want to call that, right? My double, whatever. Go to the Taj Mahal and bring me back some intelligence about it. Okay. Go to XYZ and bring me back what it feels like there. Just give it an instruction and send it on its way. Forget all about it for the time being anyway. Okay. Then an hour later, 2 hours later, or whatever, it's going to just be over there doing whatever you asked it to do for as long as you tell it to do that. Okay. An hour or two later, start off with like a half an hour. Okay. And then work your way up. You can go weeks if you wish later, but for right now, short trips. All right. Stand in the same position, summon it back, but this time it's facing away from you. Okay. So you see that form in front of you, and then you draw that back into you, until it's completely back absorbed inside of you, and just be with it for a bit and see what kind of intelligence it brings to you. It is absolutely an amazing experience, and it's not even that hard to do. You probably should have been taught how to do this in, grade school, really. Because you don't even have to have much content here. This part is completely able to do that. But it's something that you can begin to have practice with. And Sachin, sorry. Right? Is that correct?
That's any of those is fine. I'm doing some research into my name and all that, so that might change. For now, just refer to me as Sachin.
Sachin. Okay. Excellent. Sachin, this exercise will help answer your question, because it becomes a tool for your physicality. Yeah. It becomes an extra part of this incarnation that you currently have, as opposed to shifting your focus there. And if it's happening in dreams, it's okay. It's completely natural, especially for being in attendance to this kind of work. It begins to happen, I think, pretty much to everybody. But that specific exercise will help ground you, help keep you keep it in its place so that it becomes kind of your servant in your physical life, as opposed to it becoming the center focus of that. Does that help a bit?
Yeah. Any thoughts on doing it for places that I'm familiar with, as in, you
Mhm.
mentioned Taj Mahal, like
Yeah,
something. So I want to make sure that it's not me drawing into my memories and pulling it back. As
sure.
opposed, do you recommend that I do something or somewhere, like I have not been to Machu Picchu, so like, okay, I have never seen a video of Machu Picchu, so send the astral life there, so I'm sure it's not my imagination.
Yeah,
Is that
yeah.
you recommend, or you should say, okay, I've been to Taj Mahal, so should I say, okay, go to Taj Mahal, or does it not matter?
Well, it doesn't really matter that much. You're just getting used to the discipline of it and teaching it to serve you, serve the higher aspects of you, rather than it controlling the lower. You see, no, that's not the right way to put it. There's a difference between the control aspect of it and the center of gravity in one's life. You see, me, Pierce, I am a physical being with an astral and mental body that are able to go do things on my behalf. Okay, but I am still me. I'm not an astral body with a physical form. I hate when uh, they have all the best intentions when they say, you're a spiritual being inhabiting a physical body. No, you are not. You're a physical being with spiritual components. You're all of it. Okay, but to answer your question more directly, this is a training approach that will help keep you grounded and make it serve your purposes. As far as where you send it, it doesn't really matter. In the beginning, the only thing you're going to get back is feelings anyway. You're going to get back, and I said Taj Mahal because Taj Mahal is an objective work of art. Everyone that enters the Taj Mahal has the same feeling, whether they are just there snapping pictures as a tourist or whatever. It's going to impact them the same way, whether they are aware of it or conscious of it or not, you see. But if you've already had experience, that's fine. Send it to Egypt, send it to, Machu Picchu, send it to Hawaii, where, whatever you want. Okay.
Or yeah, I mean, the other thing I was thinking of, hey, can I just do it instead of doing it for 30 minutes? Maybe just do it for 5 minutes
Yeah, sure. Of
and
course.
send it to like Rainier, or set it on my roof. Just go
Yeah.
hang out on the roof, see the eagles, come back and
Yeah.
just keep it shorter to start with, and then start
Yeah.
doing a little bit more fancy stuff. Okay, got it. I'll try
Absolutely.
that this week.
Yeah. Yeah. Later on, you can use it for healing, right? If someone asks you to, it's always a permission type of thing. But if someone asks you to, you can say, hey, this person is suffering. They've asked you to help. This person's suffering. Go tend to them and come back, right? Or bring it back, I guess, when it's done. This is where it begins, okay? Easy. This is easier than you might think, actually. Everyone can do it. Well, questions? Okay, let me tell you a little bit about dreams. All right. Sorry. Something my mental body just said these people need this. All right. When you are out and about astral traveling, for example, you're going to see all kinds of stuff. You're going to see all kinds of strange things. Generally, well, a lot of times what you'll see is people almost like like zombies milling around. Okay, generally what those are people who are sleeping and having an out-of-body experience, and they're not making much sense, heads or tails, of what's going on, because it's kind of like one of those weird dreams, right, that people have. Strange things happen in dreams sometimes, don't they? So sometimes you'll see people just milling about kind of unconsciously. You try and sense them, communicate with them in some way, and you just get that feeling that they're just not really there. They're not in your world. They're doing their own thing. All right. You'll see that sort of thing. Other times, you'll see some monstrous things. But let me tell you, they don't have power. Okay. These are what are called thought forms. A thought form, if I can do this right now, all right, I just put astrally, in the astral light of the planet, I just put a pink elephant right in front of me. Okay. Now, if you were astral traveling here to this Eminent Way room, you would go, that's bizarre. There's a pink elephant there. Okay. It's because I thought about it. I put it there. All right. Now, people, because the astral realm is mostly emotional, people fill it up with things that have a symbolic representation of what it is that they're feeling at the time. And so if a person is feeling despair, it can sometimes look like, a big muddy hole. All right. If people are feeling greed, it can be something that seems to be really attacking everything, right? Stinging, like giant bees or, different types of insects or things. Do you understand? It's this world of symbology where feelings take on an astral physical form. You don't really need to worry too much about those things. All right. And if you need to change the scenery, you have the ability to do that simply by feeling something different. Okay. So there's just a bit of a clue. People worry way too much about the strange things that they see in the astral light of the planet. Generally, those types of things will fade pretty quickly as the person's mood, really. Yeah. Now, you go to some sorts of religious sites and you see amazing things sometimes, really amazing things. And the reason why is because people go there with so much devotion, and they have done so for hundreds of years or thousands of years in some cases, right? With so much feeling and devotion that something very touching can live there. Yeah, it can literally create something akin to an angel. I use that term very loosely in this context because it is the emotional content of the people that live there, but they create a form in the astrolight there that is absolutely brilliant. Yeah. In some cases, there is a danger there too, though, that I should probably address. If you visit one of these high religious kinds of places, don't come away thinking you're the next Jesus Christ or Muhammad or whatever the case is, okay? Because these types of things are looking for humans to be able to process through, yeah? And so if it tells you, you are the next savior, tell it to fuck off and come back, all right? That's not your job here, okay? But it is something that they want to do, and it feels like that, all right? This happens. This does actually happen. You'll one day be encountered by something that's going to try and tell you that you're the next savior of the human race, right? Don't buy into it. Appreciate it for what it is. It's just trying to be a savior by choosing someone to be a savior through. But at the same time, that's not your purpose. Yeah. Okay. So just a kind of a fair warning in that regard. That sort of thing happens.
Yes, I think thanks for that warning. I think after your second explanation or more detailed explanation, it makes me feel that I definitely don't want to go more than 5 miles away from my house.
More than 5 miles away. Yeah.
Don't go too far away. Don't know what you're gonna run into. Like the roof is perfect. Go on top of the roof. There's just nobody there. Some birds. That's it. Try that out. Get control over. Kind of the aspect about getting shocked in that sort of vulnerable state. Because I think if I don't think I've ever done this consciously before. Right? So the first time that I actually do it, or the first few times, I'm just gonna be like in awe. I'm gonna be like, wow, this is so awesome. Blah blah blah. Maybe. Yeah. And then something bad happens, and then oh crap, that's it, I'm done, never again. Oh, that's
so.
Retarded.
So one thing, Sachin, that I'm saying is don't send your mental body with it. Just send it out to go get feelings. Okay, get the emotional content of places. Right now, I know I sort of went into things that you might see, but really, with that experiment that I gave you, all you're going to do is have certain feelings, generally speaking. All right. They might accompany some visions in your head because then your mental body is trying to give it imagery. But generally, it's going to have an emotional content to it. Later on, when you do start consciously transferring your consciousness. By the way, the only difference between that exercise and full-on astral travel is where you put your consciousness. What I mean is, for example, I can think from over there, that cup, I can think from that position. I can, does that even make any sense whatsoever?
No, I think Pierce, what you're saying is makes sense. And this is a step-by-step process, right? So
Yeah.
to really be able to go consciously take the mental me with the astral body, I need to have enough control to even know what the astral body is. To know
Yeah.
that I should let the astral body go, do whatever it is. It's gonna come back. After it's back, then it'll tell my mental me whatever happened to it. So the
Yeah.
challenge is going to be let it go, and consciously my mental body, because it's going to want to go follow the astral body, consciously I have to make my mental body do something else. Like,
Yeah.
hey, line up stuff to do, send it off, and then do whatever you lined up to do. Do that, and then when you're done with whatever you're doing, you'll remember, oh, what was I supposed to do? My astral body. Okay, let me go back in, and it'll come back,
Yeah.
and then you handle
Right.
it that way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's etheric content, by the way. So I did call it the lower astral, but it's etheric content. So a couple of warnings with that. Don't do it if you're feeling like sick or unhealthy type of thing, because you actually you need that in you. Okay, it's part of your protection mechanism. Um, also, uh, there's a lot of fantasy out there about astral travel and all this type of stuff. Something is not going to come inhabit your body. All right, it doesn't happen. If you've heard that, it's not true. Okay, you're protected by your spirit for one, which we didn't talk about, but it will not let something like that intrude. Your astral cord will not get cut. Doesn't matter how far you go. Astral cord is like the do you know what I'm talking about? It's what connects you to it. Yeah? It's not going to get cut or severed. Doesn't matter how fast you go, how many sharp angles you take. Yeah, that sort of stuff. This is all part of you. This is all part of your experience as a human on this planet at this time. So don't worry too much. Yeah,
Um, so,
Jeffrey,
yes, hi.
speak up for me.
Okay, I'm wondering. I have another experience that occurs, and I'm wondering if it's the same or similar, or it's a different part of the complex. So,
Okay.
mostly this occurs for me when I'm working on a piece of music,
Mm.
and I'm struggling. I do it for a little while, struggle with it, perhaps. Obviously, music that's piece of music is a bit of more of a challenge,
Yeah.
and then I put it down for a while. And then I just walk away from it a day, 2 days, whatever, come back and find that I'm more proficient in it.
Yeah. That's your mental body, actually.
That's
It's doing what
yeah.
it's meant to do. It goes out.
Right.
Look, if you task it with something that it doesn't have the reference for, it's going to
Mhm.
rely on all of its resources to go and try and get those references. So yeah, that's a very common experience. And I think it's a wonderful example of one of the functions that the mental body does is it's going to go seek what it is that you need to know in order to be able to do it. Yeah. And it might take parts of the astral with it if it
Mhm.
needs the emotional content, or it might just go on its own. You know, you can send out a mental thread, and that's usually the way it works. It's actually not like it goes. What it generally does is it shoots a mental thread, all right, out of your head and goes and touches that place, and then like a tight string on a musical instrument vibrates whatever was there back to you. Okay, and then comes back into you. So that's one of the features of the mental body, and I think that's where that's coming from, based on how you describe it.
Okay, thanks.
Yes. Yes. What's that? I think you're muted.
Sorry. What about the dreams that inform us about an event that is coming? I had an experience one night. I didn't see anything in my dream, but a voice in my ear said to me that one of our relatives is dead.
Yeah.
And the next morning, I told about it to my mom. We called his family. He was just fine. And 3 or 2 days later, he had an accident and he died.
Yeah. So everything happens in the astral light before it happens physically. Okay. And sometimes when you touch something like that, it's really fate or destinic, if you understand, fate or destiny type of thing. But you'll pick up on things like that because everything. How do I put this? So we didn't get to divine and all this type of stuff, but everything that appears on the planet does so in this order, where Do is at the top, C, and so on and so forth, right? Down here. This is where things actually happen in the physical realms. But long, long before this happens, it happens here and here and here and here and here and here. Yeah. And so what you're picking up on is just maybe you saw this on the mental plane, or got an inkling of it on the mental or on the astral, of this event this event happening, and then it took place on the physical. So this is where like prophecy and premonition and things like that come in.
So it's always too late.
No, okay, this is touchy, right? It's not always too late if you have the ability and the practice of being able to change the astral light. You can actually superimpose something upon it if you're strong enough to do so. All right. Now you're not going to,
So if I was
extend it
trained,
forever.
I could prevent his death.
That's a tough one to say without knowing all of the circumstances, but it has been done in the past, or at least prolonged. Okay, changed it to a different time or whatever. But that takes a heck of a lot of ability to be able to change what's happening in the astral light, and especially with something so fundamental to the human experience. Yeah, we all die. That's part of the plan. You're born with an expiration date. Yeah, all of us are. But yeah, it is possible to change some of those types of things. If you're very sensitive and very skilled, you can change the astral light of things that happen, like historically, for example. If you come across a place like maybe Auschwitz, for example, you can overwrite that print in the astral light to make it something else. That doesn't mean that it didn't happen in history, but it no longer has that signal attached to it. In Egypt, they did that intentionally. They took Egypt away. I don't know if you know this, but it's the Egypt that you can get to today is only the end of that civilization, not what they really were. And it's because they overprinted the astral light, right? What they had before, the pyramids, and I mean everything, the Sphinx, everything that you see in Egypt today, or even 100 years ago, was the very, very, very tail end of that civilization. All that remained of when its last dying breath. What it was before that is inside of a barrier, sealed, locked into the astral light, and probably not accessible, at least to most. Now, the reason for that, the reason why they had these mummies and the mummification and all that sort of thing, is because they wanted that content that's stored there to be able to skip into our time, to be able to skip into the astral light of our day. Okay. And so they preserve things like mummies. They preserve the astral light in particular sealed contents. They weren't just mummifying bodies. They were mummifying astral content so that it could get to this day and time. So yes, it is accessible now because bits and pieces of it are breaking free into the astral light of the planet now. But yeah, even 100 years ago or so, you try to break into it astrally and you just get bounced off. So anyway, just a bit of occult information on things about the astral light, right? There should be a guidebook, like when you go to visit Rome or something, here's the things you must check out. Did that help, or did I go a little too off the beaten path there, Masad?
It was good, thank you.
Okay, good. Well, let's see. Are we at the end? How's everyone doing? Are we at the end? I think. Get you all riled up and then set you free. I think this is enough. I think this is enough to think about, enough to do. Try practicing that exercise. Yeah.
Yeah.
You can come here anytime you want to. Okay. You've seen
Yes.
enough videos of this. Yeah, I'm fine with it. Stay out of our
Yes.
living room. Yeah.
Here's one question. I don't know where everybody else is with the online program. I got to the initiation part. I glanced through it and marked it as complete.
Hold
I
on.
haven't
Don't
nothing. Okay.
don't blurt the answer. Don't blurt out the answer.
No, I'm not.
Yeah,
I'm
okay,
just.
all right.
I'm not gonna pop the body. I wanted to see if you wanted to add anything, any context to where we are now, and if you want to have a quick. What should we do? I haven't done the initiation, and I'm not going to. I might get to it this week, maybe today or this week. But anything to watch out for, or anything, or any context you want to add to what's online, because online is all you get. It's a PDF.
Yeah.
That's it.
No.
So.
All right. No, I think it's complete in and of itself. Several people have already there's a riddle right at the end. I think I alluded to that before, and some people here have already come to that and figured that out. So yeah, just use your faculties to do so. I would say any advice that I can give you, the best would be to use intuition and reasoning together. And the reason why it was designed that way is because that's what's required for the next stages of what we're engaging in. You have to be able to have intuition and reasoning all at the same time. Yeah. So use those.
No rush, no deadline, right?
No deadline, no rush. Email me, even if you get it wrong. Okay, right? Not a problem. And I will not give it to you, but I will guide you gently back to the track that will help you get there. Right? For those of you who have done it, true? Yeah. Okay. Good. All right. Till next week. See you all then.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Goodbye.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.